core sets are one of Magic's most accessible entry points for new players to learn how the game works mechanically. They also offer a wide overview of the fantasy themes that can be found across the game and act as a window into Magic's lore. Some would argue that the simpler gameplay and broader aesthetic make core sets a little boring. However, since their return in M19, this rings a little untrue, and as we'll see with M21, core sets have a style and flavour all of their own. Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things Magic flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Bam.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel.
And we are going to be going through, is it Jumpstart? Is it core set?
No,
is it Double Masters?
Is it Double Masters? Yeah. what is it? What are we
Is it the Zendikar? Is it Commander Legends? I can't fucking...
Yeah, basically there are rares and cards, and there's new sets coming out every week. I have no idea, Andy.
This is a really lame joke, but I still kind of think it fits.
It does. Genuinely, we had no day break between core set spoilers before suddenly we're getting the juiciest reprints that we've had in a while shoved down our throats through Jumpstart. So what do we do?
Yeah, what do we do? We're doing Jumpstart, and as soon as Jumpstart's done, they're going to be doing Double Masters, and then it's because Double Masters won't be released for a while, but then we're going to be getting on the Zendikar hype train, and it's just, it's a lot, right?
Yeah, choo-choo, buckle in, kids. Yeah.
Unlike in previous years where they've thrown a shit ton of product at us, and we've kind of gone, yeah, most of it's okay, but also some of it is a bit dud. Like, this stuff is all pretty great.
It's all spice.
Right.
It's all
exactly.
Everything nice.
So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to be doing our obligatory sort of set review episodes, and we're going to start with M21. We're going to do 2 episodes on M21, core set 21, and then we're going to be going into Jumpstart. We're going to split up the M21 episodes, so today we're going to keep it a little bit light on the flavour. We're going to be talking about just the set as a whole, maybe talking about core sets as a whole as well, and then next week we'll be doing a longer episode where we do a bit of a deeper dive into new characters, planeswalkers, the Teferi theme of this set, and a few more of the juicier flavour gems, and then we'll be doing 1 episode on Jumpstart after that, because Jumpstart is a bit of a lighter set, but also I think mostly we're going to be talking about just the kind of the thematic idea of Jumpstart, because it's like really a high concept set. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. I also kind of just want to say about this set as well is that we will be referencing flavour today, and we will be talking a little bit about it, but I think there's just so much that we need to get through in terms of how we do this set review. Like in past set reviews, and I know this is something that me and you, Nathan, have talked about, but we never really addressed it on actually talking about it on air, is that we've done set reviews for Throne of Eldraine, Theros, Ikoria, Commander products now since we've been doing this podcast. And we've always done it in a slightly different way. We've never just had this is how we do set reviews. So for Theros and Eldraine, we did quite big, hour-and-a-half long episodes where we did everything possible. And then Ikoria, we did essentially 4 episodes on Ikoria, because we did 2 episodes where we did other subjects, and then spoilers were coming out, so we were talking about them alongside. And then we did a set review, and then we did a Commander review, and then we did 2 lore episodes as well. So we're always changing things up, and I think it's because the products keep changing ever so slightly. Every time we do a set review, it kind of calls for a slightly different tack, because and core sets don't tend to have a storyline. I think we're not going to do there isn't a storyline to review or to kind of reference, but because they have with since Nicobolas and then Chandra and now Teferi, because this is the first of these kind of themed core sets that we've ever reviewed, it is pertinent to do. This is the general core set review, and then we're going to be looking at some of the the new characters or the planeswalkers or some of the more story specific stuff, because there is stuff to get into there. This might change in the future as well, where we might do reviews in a completely different way, and we maybe just focus on literally just our flavour highlights. But yeah, we're still figuring it out as well. So if it seems a little bit disjointed over the set reviews that we've done, it is. We're all trying to figure it out as well.
Well, what we learned is that when we try and break down a full set, and also the other that now we've got sets that every set's a big set. You don't have little sets anymore. It's exhausting. There's so much to talk about, and especially the difference between a core set and an expansion set is that an expansion set, we have the world to talk about. There's usually a new world, or we're returning to a world that we haven't seen in a while. Usually all of the cards are world building cards. With core set, not so much. Not so
No.
much. It still does have that feeling back in the day of where it's like a reprint set. Obviously, in recent years, we've been having this more, as you say, like this thematic thing. We've been layering on Planeswalker stories to it and giving some new, not only new cards, but also giving some added depth to characters. So in this, we're going to talk a little bit about like how like the philosophy of core sets build, and this one how it works with it, like power level maybe, whether it's higher or lower, or that kind of nonsense. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty family things of Teferi maybe next week. Because there is still for a core set, there's a lot to talk about. There's
sure.
a lot going on.
Yeah, but as I say, we'll kind of put Teferi and Basri Ket and maybe some of the more individually flavor cards like in a box, and we'll kind of move them over to next week where we can really deep dive. Because obviously we've got returning characters as well, which we'll do like 30-second recaps on who the hell they are. Karavek, for example, we won't talk much about people like him this week, but next week we'll be deep diving because they've been doing the lore slides for a lot of these guys now, so it kind of refreshes people's memories. And for cards and legendaries that did have story, but just not in the forefront, because being of Orthos wasn't necessarily the point of the game, like even 5 or 6 years ago, let alone like 20. Like now they're starting to bring back these characters, and it's kind of important to know who they are and all this kind of thing. But for this week, we're doing a bit more of a much broader stroke, just talking about core sets in general and some of the nutty stuff that they've kind of put into this core set outside of necessarily the storyline things.
Yeah, because the first thing I put down essentially is when we're talking about core set philosophy, the thing that I like about these modern core sets that we've been doing is that they do two things. They not only reprint cards like good strong power, but they've also, as I say, we've been reprinting what I like to call reprinting the story, because we essentially we're coming back to seeing characters that we've never seen, we haven't seen in years, or we haven't ever seen at all apart from books. Obviously, when we had the original Bolas arc, it was amazing to get all of the Elder Dragons again. I know, especially for Commander players, obviously they were the big kings that harkened our format. So that was really nice to go and see that, as well as getting backstory on what he did. We didn't necessarily get as much, legitimate stories on the website on this one, but I mean the whole point is that if we're able to not only reinvigorate mechanically standard environments with cards from older sets, like last year we got 2 years ago we got Scape Shift and Crucible of Worlds, cards like that really typically would not normally see in core sets these days, because they are quite strong, powerful cards, and core sets got a bit wishy-washy. Whereas now, not only are they reprinting power back into the sets, but they're also reinvigorating, I'd say, like story elements as well. So it's
do you know what? Yeah, do you know what I really like about this? Like touching on that idea that core sets are kind of reinvigorating the kind of the highlights of the game, or like the flavor of the game in general, is that because although they can bring in story elements, it's not even just that. It's that they have with core sets kind of a blanker slate to imprint whatever elements of fantasy they want to imprint on, and kind of make up like the meat and potatoes of the theme of the game, if that makes sense. So there's one card in this set called Alchemist's Gift, which is an instant for a black, just one black, and its target creature gets +1/+1 and gains your choice of Death Touch or Lifelink until end of turn. So mechanically, super on theme for a core set. It's a very simple effect. It's a combat trick, and it introduces newer players to 2 different keywords, which they can then play around with at their leisure as they're playing this card. Very simple. But the artwork and everything about it, and we bang about artwork every single bloody episode of this bloody podcast, but like it all kind of fits in together, because the artwork itself is very just simple. It's a wizard or some kind of sorcerer who, being Alchemist's Gift, we can assume is an alchemist of some description. They're doing glowy magic eyes, they're doing a magic-y thing with their hand, and they've got a bunch of magic-y nonsense going on around them, like an aura, and it's all liquidy, so it looks a little bit like, so it's kind of ties in with the theme of alchemy. Now, on paper, that's a super cookie-cutter fantasy thing. That could be in any game, could be in any book or film or whatever else, but it's so well done. I mean, firstly, it's the art is really cool. It's Christy Barnescu, who's a very good artist. The art is very cool. And I can imagine, I think it was Cynthia Shepherd was the art director on this one. I could be wrong, because we got Jumpstart coming out as well. But I can imagine the art direction was actually really simple. It was just have a wizard doing some wizardy stuff. But that's all you need. Like when you have sets and style guides and all this kind of stuff in the theme sets around core sets, where you have really heavy themes that you want to get across, core sets just act as that really pure palette cleanser, both mechanically and flavorfully for the game. And Like, I really like it. I think it's such a cool thing. I'm really glad they brought them back, because the core sets went away for a while, and then they brought them back
Yeah.
and maintained.
Well, the other thing that's really good is it keeps a lot of the sets that they want to keep in people's brain spaces in their brain spaces as well. Like little things. I'm gonna we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a card like Turn to Slag and things like that might give you a hint as to not only keeping people remembering sets like Mirrodin from a few years ago, but also keeping in mind the sets that are probably going to be going forward. Like we see parts of Amonkhet, we see bits of Zendikar, we see all of the current sets of Magic, almost like a little glimpse of all of it. It's almost like it's almost like a montage of where are we currently in Magic. You know, like you get a little bit of Khans, you get a little bit of not Khans, a little bit of Tarka, all this kind of thing. And it, as you say, it keeps all of the different individual planes kind of in people's minds. It also then creates this diversity across like the art style and art direction, because you've got all of these different planes. But as you say, it does just create a nice general fantasy feel.
Yeah,
and it's funny that you picked up that card, because as soon as I looked at that card, I was like, "Oh, that just looks like Hela from Ragnarok."
From Thor
and it's
Ragnarok.
And it's one of those things of where, there is obviously a generic fantasy IP that Magic. And it's funny because we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago about how it might be moving slightly away in terms of when it's trying to push the boat out. With core sets, this is the opposite. It's where it kind of looks inwards, goes, "How can we make a nice, simplistic, grounded, set that's not only easier to play," because that's essentially what core sets should have been. They were beginner sets, so they were supposed to be easier to play. But
a lot of the cards have reminder text on all of the abilities. That one I just mentioned, half the text box is reminder text reminding people what Death Touch and Lifelink actually are. So, which is really cool. I really like it.
Yeah, you don't get the room for the flavour as much because they need to explain the functionality, and that's the whole point of a core set. But what I will say, considering how some core sets have been in the past, every single card, most of the cards, and there's something that they specifically said they wanted to do, is they wanted to make commons feel more interesting. And a lot of the cards in this set have dual purpose. They have dual use. As you said with this card, it's a really good example again. Normally you've got the +1/+1 Death Touch on a black card for 1 mana, the +1/+1 Lifelink on a white card for 1 mana. They went, oh no, put on both cards and you've got the mode. Do I need to kill the thing? Do I need to race a little bit? As soon as you make a combat trick, have a choice of whether or not it's going to be used as a removal spell or as a means to, get an extra like 5 life to, race for a couple of turns. That's interesting. And that's
just a really good teaching tool as well.
Exactly, and it's really, really good to be able to get these effects at lower rarities and get players basically having to make decisions with every single card. You don't get chaff. You don't get those crappy, shitty 5 cards at the end of the pack that no one wants to play. And it makes the whole experience more interesting. Plus, if this is a way to engage with the game initially, is there the downside of, okay, it's slightly more complicated than older core sets would be? Maybe, but then you can just play like the Planeswalker decks or whatever else, the even more simplistic product. I think that core sets nowadays, they need to be just as exciting as expansions, and I think that this set does a very good job of doing that. I think there were so many cards that they spoiled that I was like, what? In a core set?
There's been a bit of a thing. It's hard to pinpoint, isn't it, really, like what like zeitgeist across Magic communities is, because 100 people could say it, but you can never remember exactly who said it. But there's been a general feeling that the reason that Wizards keeps saying things like, we don't want to reprint things like Shocklands or this mechanic or that mechanic or this keyword, is because they're too complicated for new players. That's always one of the excuses that's kind of trotted out for not reprinting powerful effects. So I kind of feel like this core set is maybe not a re-steering of the ship, but maybe an acknowledgement that actually Magic is a complicated game. We're not trying to be elitist or trying to be gatekeepy by saying we want a complicated game. We want to show people how cool and complicated this game can be. Yeah. And in a core set like this, like core sets do need to be simpler, which is why there's things like reminder text and why there's only a handful of like dual color cards, for example, multicolor cards. It's mostly all monocolor because that's how it should be. But also, giving a new player these 2 keywords and saying, look, okay, ignore the lifelink thing for now, just use this as a Death Touch thing. This is how Death Touch works. All right, now ignore the Death Touch. This is how lifelink works. Okay, now you've got that concept. Now you can make this choice at instant speed. How do you do it? And you can still make these cards, as you say, engaging, but you can then give people the customization of when they're teaching new players, or if someone's down at a game day or a Friday night Magic. Obviously not happening now because we're all stuck inside like fucking hermits, but like, that's something you can do, and you can introduce people to these flavorful mechanics and how this game is played. Like there's Walking Corpse has been reprinted in this set, which is a 2/2 for 2 zombie with no abilities, just vanilla, but it's so flavorful in what it's trying to tell people. It's introducing people to the concept of zombies and Magic, and there's color pie things going on there, but also it's just a vanilla creature, so it's all about the flavor in terms of what they're doing. Like with simpler cards, there's actually more room sometimes for people to just be like, I really fucking like vampires. So I want to build a vampire deck. I don't want it to be too complicated. Oh, there's this vanilla vampire. Well, that's still like really cool. You know, it's just, I think we forget because we've been playing for years and years and years, and we understand we can slot in new mechanics and new things really easily into our lexicon because it's just adding like another layer on. That actually, if Magic was literally just, you know, creatures and sorceries, and most of the creatures were vanilla, like 2/1s or like 3/1s or whatever, I think it'd still be really fucking fun.
Yeah, no,
like,
absolutely. The base concept of the game is always very engaging. Richard Garfield set up a very good structure, and obviously after 26 years, things get a bit crazy. You know. But the whole point I've got written down here is it's almost like there's a spectrum of where you really want a core set to have identifiable themes. You want each card. Obviously, this is where the uncommons, the dual color uncommons, work out really well because they do indicate what the themes are for the green white deck or the red black deck or whatever. Like as I said, within the set, the themes are really easily identifiable. The cards do the thing very nice and succinctly, but the thing is now the cards have enough depth to be interesting. It's not, you know, make a couple of 1/1s or just a 2/2 that gets a +1 attack. Like there's more. Yeah, so there's more diversity between what the cards can do and whether they can fit into different themes and different styles as well. That's another thing that's quite good with having cards doing multiple things. Is obviously they can switch their role between decks, not only functionally within one deck, but also they can serve different functions in different decks, which is quite hard to do with the only reason I mention this is, and we've talked about this for a bit, is because with core sets it was always really difficult to find a middle ground between playing well and being exciting. You know, like you want it to serve a fundamental process of building the basics of the game. And sometimes for me, it was really nice to go back to a core set just to play some normal Magic. You know, I didn't want to have to play the Graveyard Mill theme in Innistrad for like 3 months. It was nice to go, oh, okay, right, now I can just play some dudes and swing sideways. You know, you don't have to worry about mutate. You know, you don't have to worry about all of these crazy escape mechanics and things like that. It's nice, simple, clean mechanics. And sometimes it does create more potent and more pokey. And what I'd like to say is sometimes having 6 words on a card gives a card more punch than having 58.
Yeah,
you know, like I know we're not necessarily going to talk about Kovac in terms of flavor, but one thing I really liked about this core set is compare the legends from this set compared to the last core set, where they had things like Omnath and Kethis and Kakar. The difference in these the power level, the complication of it, the build around aspects compared to the nice simple effects of Kovac. I mean, yes, okay, I know it's not like it's a 4-mana 2/3 that gives -1/-1 to everything, but that's really simple and punchy. And if anything, it explains his character more than Kakar. I have no idea who the fuck Kakar is, what he's doing, why he's throwing spirits around. Why are you throwing flaming spirits around, Kakar?
Like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy?
No idea. Why have you got hands? Who knows? Yeah, but with Kovac, you're like, oh, he just doesn't like dudes. Doesn't need much more than that. You look at him, you're like, yeah, okay, Kovac the Merciless doesn't like dudes, kills things. Cool. Succinct, nice. Like, I'd rather have Barons of the power level we've seen in this set than, you know, the power levels of, say, Urza. You know, sometimes you don't want your really, I mean, so yeah, okay, sometimes you want your powerful characters to do powerful things, but one thing we'll talk about next week is that all of these different characters have nuance. They're interesting and they can do interesting things within a core set environment and still not have to, you know, blow, like they don't all have to be Corvold, you know. And there's a lot of I've seen a lot of this recently of a lot of people comparing cards to being like, oh yeah, but you know, like we need to like maybe things are still, you know, too generic, or like, oh, it's not doing the same thing as well. It's like, well, yeah, realistically, Brawl kind of broke the legendary rule of they shouldn't do everything, and now we're having to, you know, as I say, dial back a bit. And that's one thing I think they did really well with this, is keep legendary cards feeling legendary without having to, you know, be Kinnan level of broken.
Yeah. On the flip side, I would sort of also throw out there that you know, being powerful, having a powerful effect doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be overcomplicated, right?
Yeah.
So the card that I'm looking at in front of me, and this is one of the big reprints of the set, and you know, you can't talk about. We're not really a reprint podcast. We're not really like a value podcast, but with M21 and Jumpstart specifically, you can't talk about these products without talking about the fucking insane reprints that they've put into this set. The one that I'm looking at right now is Planeswalker Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
Oh boy, yeah.
My God, they reprinted.
You didn't get one last year. Oh, that's fine. You don't get a new one. You just get that really good old one again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So 8 mana, 7 loyalty, and basically one of the most powerful Planeswalkers in all of Magic the Gathering. Like, it's a Planeswalker that is almost too OP for something like EDH, which is saying something, because Planeswalkers can be really a bit bollocks in EDH. But this is a powerful card, and it's got things like Exile on it, which Exile to new players is one of those kind of swervy ones. It took me a long time to understand what Exile was compared to Destroy, for example. But it's got life gain and it's got damage on there. And I think as powerful as it is, and this would be one of those cards that I think Wizards of the Coast maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago would have gone, new players won't get this card, it's too powerful for them. But I think I throw out there that this is one of the smartest includes into a core set for a long time. It's the perfect core set commander. It's colourless, goes into every deck. If you open one of these, doesn't matter what the fuck you're playing, you can play with this big splashy powerful card.
If you don't play it, by the way, you're probably wrong.
Yeah. Well, also great teaching moment. Grab your like 14-year-old like kid sat next to you in the draft by the scruff of the neck and go play the fucking Ugin.
I've been drafting red white aggro for 2 packs. Throw it out. Doesn't matter. Just play the Ugin and 39 lands. Do it. It'll win.
Exactly. Yeah, you'll still win. But like all of his abilities are just so different, and they all teach everyone a new thing. Like the first thing, it deals damage to any target. Whole thing to unpack there. Second one, exile things with an X cost in it as well, teaches you all that kind of shit. Third one, gain life. Like, so you've got the gain life thing, the draw cards thing, and then 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Like it's seemingly got too much going on, but because it is Planeswalkers do it breaks them down into individual abilities. Like it's just I think we talk about flavor all the time because we talk about how like the emotional response to cards, and usually that kind of falls into the storyline category or the art category or whatever else. But oftentimes, and we've said this a lot when we talk about Red, about like oftentimes the playability of something is just as flavorful as anything else, and how like it makes you feel when you play it.
Yeah.
And if the flavor of a core set is to teach people about the Magic, and like that's what the kind of emotional response they want from people is to learn how to play this game, Ugin the Spirit Dragon is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And there may be a lot of people that disagree because he is just very OP and there are some swervy keywords on there, but I think this is a very smart reprint.
Yeah, after that, it also teaches you about colors, color identity, which is a big one for players as well. And the other thing as well is that one thing that people like with core sets that could be an issue is that if you've opened up your really cool dragon, like, you know, if they reprinted Chieftain Dragon or whatever, I mean, that's one thing we'll talk about how little they've reprinted things like angels, dragons, and demons in the set. They've done very little of it. But you don't want to open this really cool, like, 7-mana dragon, you know, kick ass in your draft with it. Like, show it off to your, like, you know, your friend who's been playing for years, and he goes, oh yeah, it's that shitty core set dragon, yeah, whatever. Whereas if you open Ugin, like, you've got your pro player's come and go, I'll trade you. Yeah, well, what have you got over? That's strong. And it suddenly makes you go, oh, my things have value and money and power. Yay. There's nothing worse than doing like a sealed of core and a core set sealed. And then at the end of it, you're like, well, this is all chaff. Good. Great. Not using any of these cards for anything. Whereas in this set, if you open a pack, you might get a shiny Azusa and a Grim Shooter. Like, you know, the difference between like that and say, like, you know, 5-6 years ago is quite significant, I think. I mean, obviously, they did a massive overhaul over core sets. I think they understood what they were doing when they came back to them. So I think, yeah, very, very clever. As I say, like, the other big thing that I'm just going to mention quickly is that the reprints of things like Fierce Empath, Kite Cell Freebooter, as much as they're called exciting cards for our standard environment, we have to realise that core set is obviously adding cards into Historic as well. And as much as that's a format that we don't really touch or anything, it's interesting that they probably pushed a few of the cards and the envelopes on the power levels and the reprint value because they knew that it wasn't just going into standard, it was also going into historic, and it was opening up some options. So that is one thing to be said. I think it's only going to benefit sets going forwards the more formats that they're included in, because yes, they might have to be a bit more sensitive with the cards that they print, but it also means that they will be printing cards with those sets in mind, so they might be able to push the envelope on certain strategies and archetypes that otherwise they wouldn't. Like, you wouldn't have seen Fierce Empath in a core set for years, and to be fair, it's not necessarily over like broken or anything, but for the elf deck, holy shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, very good, very cool. The last thing I've got to do, like the core set philosophy, and this is one thing that obviously everyone's going to go super owu and kuai about, is the cats and dogs, Andy.
Yes. Now this is something flavorful we can really talk about in this episode. I think.
Absolutely, because I think this is one. Okay, so cats out of the bag, pun intended.
Oh God.
Hounds are now dogs. Oh my fucking god! I've been calling it for like. I'm not gonna lie. As soon as I first saw this, I had a little squeal because as much as I feel vindicated, Andy, I feel fucking vindicated. They did it.
Yeah,
they did it.
They
I
did.
joked.
They did
It's when they first saw the first card. It's like, and now all they have to do is make hounds dogs. And I looked online. And, I mean, they had. They actually.
I can confirm for our listeners that Nathan is not bullshitting. He did call it.
Yeah, fantastic, beautiful, so happy.
Yeah, really cool, and they've really lent into it as well. So like a lot of the cards in this set. So Jumpstart and M21 were meant to be kind of thematically linked. A lot like, say, look at how the Commander decks and Ikoria were thematically linked for being Ikoria. Jumpstart is essentially like M21, the kooky format version. Like, so they were kind of printed and designed at the same sort of time.
No, I just want a cookie format.
And shut up.
Sorry.
And so, like, whilst in Jumpstart, like we're all seeing the spoilers now, there's loads of cats and there's loads of dogs going on. I think people forget that how many are in this set as well. And it felt at first when the spoilers were coming out, because obviously you're only looking at like 1 or 2 cards at a time, that it kind of felt a little bit unsetty because some of the visuals,
wasn't it?
Because it's not just dogs, as in like magic dogs, like how
there's little fucking terriers and shit.
They're literally dogs. Like, whereas in the past, hound cards have been, like they've been designed off of like mastiffs or bull terriers, or whatever else.
Hyper stylized,
they're hyper stylized, right? These are like fantasy realist versions of actual fucking dogs. They might have some armor on, but that's a schnauzer.
Chihuahua,
It's really strange. And we've seen cats before with this. Like, they've been doing cats for a long time. I mean, fuck it. Loads of the cats in Magic are actually based off of actual people's cats. There's Elena Dana. I can say her name. Elena Dana's enchantment. What is it? Pet. Oh my lord, what is this thing? Hang on, let me grab it up. Animal Sanctuary.
Yeah, it's the lands. Yeah, the land.
The land.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So
the land.
Animal
Sanctuary by Elena Dana. Those are actually her cats and dogs in the thing, and it was inspired by all the Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiant cats that were brought in, where our artists did portraits of their actual cats and dogs. So we have had it. It's just, because there's so much of it now in this set, and they wanted it to theme up with Jumpstart, and cats and dogs are one of the themes in Jumpstart as well. Like, it's really weird that in a core set where they've gone, do all these big, powerful, splashy things and introduce new players to the complex nature of Magic, but also dogs and cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Things.
This is funny because we said this before we started the episode. Cats and dogs feel like a core set thing. Like, as we said, like, it's hard to justify domestic animals in some planes. Like, obviously in Ikoria you don't get a domestic cat, you get a cat with fucking wings that's like 16 foot long. So it's quite, I feel like if you're going to put this idea in, like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people spend a lot of time at home at the moment, everyone's feeling very broody and catty and petty, and I get it, because it's one of these things of, especially with the companions and release everything, it does feel like they're leaning into this idea a little bit more of where they understand their audience and what their audience likes. And there is nothing wrong with putting cats and dags. Oh god, putting dogs and cats into a core set. I think Animal Sanctuary is beautiful. I also love the fact it's bird, cat, dog, goat, ox, or snake that gets the +1/+1 counter.
Yeah,
I love the fact that that's a little lean into the snakes. That's fantastic.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, juxtapose that kind of. This is how like kind of weird core sets sometimes feel, especially if you've been on the tail end of it and you've had a bunch of like very heavy theme sets leading up to it. You compare a card like Animal Sanctuary, where it's all cutesy and cats and doggy and snaky, to a card like Village Rites, which is instant 1 black again. And as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards, and it's like a cult murdering a dude.
Yeah, it reminds me of Village Cannibals from Innistrad, of where you're from the point of view of the guy who's literally about to be eaten by their fellow villagers. Oh yeah,
no, it's absolutely Innistrad. And the flavor text was, you were so eager to take and consume, yet when you asked to give, you refuse. You think, oh great, where's the Animal Sanctuary? Take me back to the Animal Sanctuary.
Yeah, the fact you can get the spectrum is fantastic. It's funny that you speak about that, because that's, I mean, I was going to start moving on to what I think to be like mechanical highlights, and that's the bottom of my list. The reason I put that on the list is because notice what this card does. It's a 1 mana instant, draw 2 cards, fizzle your removal spell.
Oh, this Village Rites, yeah?
Yeah, so if they try and kill your creature, you go, all right, in response, sacrifice it, draw 2 cards for 1 mana. That's really strong. Like, this is one of these things I'm looking at. Like, I was looking through to see if are there any really strong commons that I haven't really paid attention to. That have this right here.
Yeah, this could end up in a lot of artifact decks and a lot of formats. Artifact
historic as well. Yeah, I mean, now there's Lurrus around. I look at Lurrus. I look at cards like the Aven. Where are we? The Aven Sanctuary, the one that makes 2/2 Griffins. Griffin Airy, 1 and a white enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life, you get a 2/2 white Griffin. Cards like that are actually really quite powerful. I mean, okay, it's not an engine because it's not at the end of every turn. It's at the end of your end step. But getting a 2/2 flyer every turn is actually pretty strong. These are the kinds of effects that could build really strong historic decks because they are cheap effects that do something interesting that you can build around. And the fact that it's a core set and you can display these effects, it doesn't feel hugely broken within the limited environment, but they could do broken constructed things. I say broken, within reason. We're currently playing 8/8 Hydroid Krasis on turn 5. Nissa did nothing wrong apparently, so she does not get banned. But yeah, so it's funny that, like, let's say this set, we'll talk about the highlights now. Like, there are cards from all rarities, everything from common all the way up to mythic, that are interesting to get your teeth into. And for the most part, for a long time, core sets didn't offer us that. They didn't give us this kind of mechanical depth. As I say, you very rarely got. I mean, for a long time, you didn't get any reprints whatsoever, and then sometimes, you didn't get any new cards whatsoever. And sometimes the new cards were things like Baneslayer Angel, and sometimes they were things like the 6th Chandra. But starting at the top, and this is one thing I think is going to be this blows my mind. Elder Garganoth. Now, this is the green mythic from the set. I say the green mythic, for the one that's worth paying attention to. It's a 5 mana. 5 mana 6/6, so 3 green for a 6/6 with Vigilance, Reach, Trample. Whenever it attacks or blocks, you choose one of 3. You either create a 3/3 beast token, you gain 3 life, or you draw a card.
Yeah.
The thing about this card is it's not good enough. Honestly, genuinely, for standard, for these days in Magic, this is not good enough. This will not see play. Do you know why? Because it does not have an ETB, LTB. It's a 5 mana, does nothing, eats removal spell. You can put all of these words on it, and it's still not good enough, Andy. It is baffling that we've got to a point of where standard can be that strong. That's the reason I bring it up, because I was looking at this, I was like, it's all blocks, attacks all blocks, and it's got Vigilance, so it can create. You've got a 6/6 that can make 2 3/3s. Like, even in a turn order of Commander, obviously, if everyone attacks into it, you're making a 3/3 every turn. Obviously, no one attacks into it; they're not idiots. But the fact that
what about something like Draft?
Well, this is the thing. Obviously,
limited,
and even then, the whole point, you don't want something that you play it and you've won. Because the whole point, you need the window of, okay, if it survives a turn order, you want your mythics to win you the game. So you do need that window of, as long as you can kill it, it's fair. The whole point with mythics, though, is that because you see them so infrequently, you can probably get away with them being so splashy that they are, if you don't answer me immediately, I win. And you probably want to get a bit of something out of it. But I'm looking at, say, this compared to, say, Thragtusk. And Thragtusk, on paper, probably looks worse. But then when you realise the power of it's an ETB effect you can't interact with, it's a leaves the battlefield effect that doesn't matter how you get rid of it. Compare that to all of the hodgepodge nonsense that's on here. It doesn't actually matter, you know? And it's funny, like in terms of power level, they can push these core concepts, but realistically, this is a great example of a Timmy card of where, you thought your big splashy green card was going to win you the game, Doomblade.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is actually probably a good way to teach players, not only... Obviously, it's not like Quest Beast where they've just gone, okay, that literally just make it unbelievably powerful so you can't answer it. But if anything, this is as far as you can push the envelope for spells, but for creatures, but still have, a 2 mana answer and still feel fair.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting space. I was looking at it, and my brain just went, you can't print that. And then the worst thing is like, but that's not even playable. How is that not even playable? Magic's a crazy place at the moment. Moving on from my complete and utter deplorable... I can't believe it about Elder Garganoth. Let's talk about Teferi, because Teferi is a really strong card as well. They did it. They printed a Teferi with a static ability that you can use an ability every fucking turn.
All right, cool. Read through Teferi because there's a lot going on there.
2 blue for 8th. So it comes to play with 3 loyalty. Legendary Planeswalker Teferi. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time, on any player's turn, anytime you could cast an instant. It has a +1 to draw a card, then discard a card. -3, target creature you don't control phases out. The reminder text for this is treat it and anything attached to it as if they don't exist and its control until its controller's next turn. And then for -10, take 2 extra turns after this one. So not only did they print Time Stretch on a Planeswalker Ultimate, which, okay, yeah, it's not Ral Zarek where you can flip 5 coins and take 5 turns. But the funny thing about this is, like, if you compare, like, say, Elder Gargonoff, where you're probably going to get more out of it in Limited than you are in Commander, this is a card where, as much as I still think this is significantly weaker than the 3-mana Teferi that's currently in Standard, I don't think it will do as much. And it's funny that you can print things like take 2 extra turns and you can activate it every player's turn, and it's still worse than the other one. But I think that's underestimating just how strong the current 3-mana Teferi is. Just its static ability is silly. But the thing about this one that's really interesting is, obviously, you're playing Commander. You don't just activate it on your turn; you can activate it on every other person's turn. So realistically, in 2 turn cycles, you can already get to Ultimate Stage, which is really scary. As if Teferi didn't get enough hate, you know. It's like Wizards just wants to get. Can we make him any more hated, any more broken? What more things can we put on him that people don't like?
I am actually a little bit surprised. So this is the Teferi set. So as we said, since they did, so M19 did get a full-on story by Kate Elliott, and it was the Nicobolas set. And then they kind of half and halved it with the Chandra one. So the Chandra one, they did a lot more storytelling on the cards, but there wasn't actually any written down story. And then this Teferi set, they've kind of followed that track too. So this is ostensibly the Teferi themed core set. So the Teferi was always going to be very interesting. I'm really shocked that he is so pushed. The static ability, the every turn thing, phasing, like everything about it is just
I'm
like,
shocked that you're shocked.
Wow.
You know, I'm shocked that you're shocked. I mean,
but he's been a problem for so long. Every Teferi Planeswalker has been a bit of an itch.
They just don't
even
learn.
the 5-mana one. Even the 5-mana one.
People forget about Hero of Dominaria. He was not the hero of Standard.
No. I'm surprised that they did it again. Just for the benefit of everyone listening, yes, we know about the bajillion artworks that are for this Teferi. We will be talking about it next week. This is more of a mail episode.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we are aware. We'll get to it. We'll get to it next week. But yeah, this Teferi is scary. I'm glad that they put phasing in the reminder text.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up as well.
Because I still don't fucking understand phasing.
Yeah,
I've been playing around protections for 2 years.
Yeah, the thing about phasing is actually, realistically, it's really easy to it's really easy to figure out. It actually is less. The reason why it was confusing to players is because it got put on like bad cards back in the day, so you didn't necessarily see it played enough to get it or understand it. It's not like banding. Banding can go fuck itself. It could die in a hole because that's really, really complicated in terms of like how you structured. Like mechanically, this is actually really simple. And also the reason I like this is because it introduces removing a creature without it leaving the battlefield and entering the battlefield, which at the moment is obviously really big. This is one of the things I feel like the phase out, as much as it feels like a more complicated ability, it's actually stronger. It's actually weaker than bouncing a thing, because the bounce effects probably trigger something and then they can replay it and trigger something, which is what Standard's built around at the moment. You know, you get value out of things coming in and out of play. Because of the phasing out aspect, not only is it introducing a keyword to players and kind of teaching them what I think is actually fairly intuitive. Like, the idea is it does just disappear for a turn. It's just something that we don't see very often, so it doesn't quite trigger succinctly in our brain. But also it is actually less powerful. So I think that this is dialing, as much as it looks really pushed, I don't think it's quite as, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not doing the whole Jace Vryn's Prodigy thing of where everyone goes, oh, it's not actually that good, and, you know, it's £70. Like, I still think it's very good, and I really want one, especially because I play blue EDH deck, blue Planeswalker based EDH deck. So this card was basically, Nathan, spend money on me, please, now, thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone will love you for it. Yeah, it's really. I think they have to. You have to push your big spells in the set. Like, you can't not. It's like Nicobolas was the only transform card in his set, and yes, okay, it's a more complicated mechanic and everything. But I feel like you should make your mythics and the marquee cards of your set a bit more pushed and a bit more complicated. Obviously, don't go so far, but I don't think that this is as egregious as the 3-mana Teferi. To be fair, I'm not going to lie. I mean, again, I think multiplayer, it's a lot more powerful because you can use his +1 ability on everyone's turns. But realistically, you can only do the +1 and then a -3 in one turn cycle before you just have to go plus and plus again. I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just going to go out on air right now. I'm not saying it's not good. So when it gets banned, an emergency ban because it breaks everything in half, don't come around and tell me I told you so. I still think it's good. I just think I don't want to say fair. It's probably not even fair.
No, is it maybe that people are still having flashbacks to 5 and 3 mana Teferi?
This is why I think it's weird. Like, we've got Teferi fatigue for suresies, and yet they keep. I know that they can't know this ahead of time, and they probably thought when they first did Dominaria, oh, we're bringing back this aged-old character that everyone's going to love. Especially once the Bolas arc was coming up. Like, Teferi's one of the few people that's gone toe-to-toe with him. Yeah, he got eaten, but, you know, he's one of the few characters that's actually got the same kind of chops that Bolas has. So I'm glad that we keep seeing him. I just think that this might be us seeing them crest that hill and come back down the other side of coming back down on him a little bit.
What we don't know is that this core set was actually going to be Oko themed until 3 months ago, and then Oko got banned, and they had to
Scramble.
Quick, which character can we do? Oh, we've got a bunch of Teferi cards for next year's core set. Print them now. Print them now.
We've got a retcon. Who do we get? The Master of Time, who goes back and retcons it without you. That they should have put that into the story. Actually, been the story of M21, how Teferi has to go back and fix an Oko based. That's such a meme.
Well, it's just
meme-worthy. That's beautiful.
It's just Avengers Endgame.
I guess, yeah, essentially. Yeah, fuck it, mash the IPs together. They already did. They did more of the Spark with the Dependency War. Now I want Endgame with Core Set 21. That's what I want. Great, amazing. But yeah, let's talk about Mangara, because mechanically, Mangara is very interesting. Because we're White's getting love in every direction, apparently. Mangara is the Diplomat. He is a 2/4 for 3 and a white legendary creature, human cleric. He has lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. So this is Mr. Fair, Mr. Don't come at me, don't do too much, or I might benefit from it. This might be the most white commander I've seen in a long time in terms of what I think it represents from a white ethic and a white colour pie kind of point of view. And I think it's really strong.
Nice. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think the one thing to note is that the reason why the wording on the first ability is as such is because it basically covers all corner cases of if you attacked a planeswalker with 1 creature and then the player with 1 creature, or the planeswalker with 2 creatures, or the player with 2. It covers all of those different scenarios and then make sure they all trigger the same thing. That's why the wording feels a little bit weird. Anytime the wording in Magic looks weird, it's because the rules are weirder. Usually, because then it usually has to cover its arse. Like any time that you get, like, the reason why Magic likes to keep pulling all of its language back to something simple is because then it reads and it translates more easily. Unfortunately, sometimes because of their rulings and the way that their game works, they have to mumble and come up with stupid vernacular like this. Otherwise the game somehow breaks a little bit, which is really interesting. But yeah, I mean, as I say, I think they've obviously pushed to know and to listen to everyone's outcries about White not getting diverse card advantage and means of keeping up and different play styles. And I think this is a perfect example of them going, shut up, we're listening.
Yeah, well, Maro on his blogger talk actually came out and said it a few weeks ago. So I think obviously this was him leading up to this core set. I think I'm going to paraphrase completely, but it was him saying that he now understands that card draw is so fundamental that every color needs it. They just need to think about how White does it, and that White should be the worst at it, but they still need to have it. Whereas in previous iterations, they've gone, we don't need to give White card draw. White doesn't draw cards. But now they've changed it slightly, and they're still going, White is going to be the worst at drawing cards because that's color pie. But obviously, it's like having creatures now. Yeah. Every color needs card draw. Every color needs spells. Every color needs creatures. So yeah. Yeah, slight difference in philosophy.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, he said he's going to need to change the way that he looks at white cards. So the funny thing about this is, I think obviously he already knew that they had changed their view ages ago, and he just had to, between now and then, being like, yeah, we'll look into that in the future. And obviously in his brain, it's like, we've already done 2 sets of fixing these mistakes, people. We've done 2 sets. I just can't tell you about it yet. So I think obviously it was really good for him to be like, yeah, so at some point we had to rethink things, but we did that 2 years ago. Don't worry, we got you. And I think that kind of shows there's been a fair few cards out of White over the last year that really do show that they're kind of changing their view on how White works within the color pie, which is really, really cool, really good. The next thing that I was going to talk about was, are we going to get a triple cycle? Because we got Nyxborn Ancient, where it triples the amount of mana that your lands add. We now have Fiery Emancipation, which triples the amount of damage that your spells and stuff do. Which, are we going to get triple cycle? Are we going to get a triple cycle? Are we going to get triple tokens? Are we going to get triple life loss? Are we going to get triple card draw? Because apparently, the one thing that I really liked about this card is that apparently, when the Nyxborn Ancient got released, so basically how it works in Wizards, they get like folders of all these different cards and everything, like different ideas before sets are kind of finalized. And Maro looked through the cards and he saw Nyxborn Ancient and went, "Wait, we can triple things." He didn't know. So he didn't know that obviously you could that using that as a word in a vernacular as possible. So I think off the back of that, that's where we're getting Fiery Emancipation.
Right, Fiery Emancipation. Cool. I wonder where we're going with that. Yeah. Sure.
So 3 red for an enchantment. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, that's you control, not anyone controls, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about this is in the same set, you've got Double Vision, which is another red enchantment. 3 red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, double it. So if you have both of these enchantments out and you cast a lightning bolt, it does 18 damage.
Yeah,
which
but
is
I think,
lovely.
Yeah, but I think they're trying to balance this off against, things like blue control, and if they ramp everything else up, they've got to ramp red up as well. Otherwise, red's just not going to get there.
Well, we've already said about how whether it scales in Commander, and these are the kinds of cards that allow you to go. Actually, it's very easy to hit 50, 60 damage with these kinds of cards. Because,
we think like cards like Torbrand, of like Thane of Redfell, and
Neheb as well, for example, being able to cast fuck off big spells. Yeah, I mean, I like to see that red's getting these effects, and also getting it at what I like to call competitive. Oh, I air quoted. Oh, it's been a while. I air quoted, Andy. Competitive prices. So like costs. Sorry. So I think 6 mana is perfect for this. The fact that they've brought double vision down to 5 mana when swarm intelligence was 6 mana, cloven casting was about 7 mana. Like they're bringing the costs on these technically do nothing enchantments, because they don't do anything the first time you play them, and you don't want to invest 6 mana into an enchantment in red usually, unless it's going to do something silly bonkers. And as I say,
well, no, it gives you a turn again, is what we're saying, isn't it? Because it might a 6 mana win a game of limited card is maybe could be a little bit too good, but it's not, because it's 6 mana plus your burn spell, or 6 mana, wait a turn, chain a bunch of burn spells. So it's
6 mana, you have a bunch of stuff in play. Obviously, you can attack that turn, but I mean, at that point, it's the same as adding an overrun or something like that to your deck.
Yeah. I think it's fine.
I don't think it's outside at all. But what I like about this is the fact that Marrow said the words, wait, we can triple things. So let's see how long before we start quadrupling things. And that was the thing that kind of got me, is that I do like the fact that tripling, and Magic's incorporating a lot more words into its vernacular recently, and they're being a bit more succinct with things, which I think is quite cool, quite nice. What was the next one? Oh, the next one's Idle of Endurance. So how earlier we were talking about how core sets typically try and make cards nice and succinct, not particularly complicated. Idle of Endurance just throws all of that caution to the wind. And to bring this is a really interesting, really cool design that I would have not have expected to come out of a core set in any way, shape, or form. And I still look at it and think, you don't fit in my eyes. 2 and a white for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you exile all creature cards with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard until Idle of Endurance leaves the battlefield. For 1 and a white, tap until end of turn, you may cast a creature spell from among the cards exiled with Idle Endurance without paying its mana cost. What? What? How many more things? I mean, this is the card when they did that sheet where Marrow did. We've got a card that has 31 different options, and we have a card that has, and it listed like converted mana cost 3, your graveyard, exile until end of turn, until leaves a battlefield, and this is the card. This is the card that has absolutely everything. What's really funny is for all of the words of it, it does make sense thematically and mechanically, and again, it's one of those things where it's teaching a lot of things to players. And it rewards the more experienced players, because they can build around this, and they can probably see the value of it a bit more clearly. But it also teaches players to use their graveyard without the risk of losing it all, because once you kill the idol, everything comes back again, so you don't really get that feel bad aspect. But it kind of teaches them, hey, use your graveyard, recur your things are dead, and for the most part, usually that's a pretty broken, I don't want to say complicated mechanic, but usually you don't have it as much in core sets, or you get cards like Rise from the Grave, or the one that's in the current set now, where it's just 5 mana, return 1 creature from your graveyard to play. You normally get these kinds of simple effects. So with Idle of Endurance, not only do I think it's a really strong card for formats potentially like Historic or for Standard, not only do I want to use it in EDH, but I think it's teaching these ideas of reusing your graveyard in especially in white. I think it's very helpful, because again, how does white make up all of its card advantage? Well, all of those 1-drops, 2-drops, and 3-drops that died. Well, I guess I get to play 1 for free each turn again. And as I'm looking at Idle of Endurance and Mangara side by side on my little help sheet, and white got some really interesting effects this set, like really interesting effects. And for a core set and for white, you don't normally get that. So it's quite nice to see them work and do these interesting effects, and I say push core sets to be a bit more convoluted. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was goblins, Andy, because we've got 2 of probably the most interesting goblins that have been printed in like the last 5 years from a core set that didn't have anything to do with goblins, really.
Sure.
Because so you've got Conspicuous Snoop, which allows you to basically cast goblins off the top of your deck, and then you've got Brash Taunter, which is an indestructible dude that basically could let me read him out, because Conspicuous Brutes I think is really, really cool. Brash Taunter, 4 and a red, indestructible 1/1. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to an opponent, and then you pay 2 red, tap it to have it fight another creature. Now this
Stuffy Doll.
This is Stuffy Doll, but better in my mind,
right?
Because not only is it target opponents, so you can divvy up where the damage goes, but it can also fight arc off creatures. It's not just ping itself for 1. It can go, hey, that big 10/10 over there. Yeah, that Galter. Yeah, I'm going to come and fight you. So this is going straight into the Zakama deck immediately for EDH deck, because it's better than Stuffy Doll in every way. But I mean, this is such a weird Goblin card to see, like, and again, for a core set which normally they go back to basics, to have these kinds of effects really shows that they're willing to, you know, go outside the box. And also, I don't know where this Goblin is from.
Yeah, the Goblin's really odd. It's very pink. It's very pinky red. It's very craggy looking, and he's got, for a Goblin, it's very odd proportions. He's got like a giant head and like kind of lanky limbs. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And then the Goblins around him are green. So it's not even like that's what all the Goblins look like. He's really pink for some reason.
Maybe he's like not infected with something, but maybe he's special, which is why he's indestructible.
Yeah,
maybe
he's just that angry. He's just
maybe he's on a plane where, like, I mean, it could be anything, couldn't it? He's on a plane where people go through some sort of transformation where they kind of become indestructible or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is something I guess we'll talk about next week. But yeah, like, obviously artistic choices across some of the races will be diverse because we're on multiple different planes. But the biggest thing I take from this is that all of the highlights, that they're all really cool, interesting, strong designs. And they do tend to take cards in cool directions. Like you've got the Alpine Houndmaster, who fetches up 2 other creatures when he comes into play, like the old Squadron Hawk cards used to do. These kinds of effects where they basically they're clearly shoring up each. It's just demonstrating each color, how it does, because we haven't really talked about actually what each color does mechanically. They all do the normal thing that each colors do, basically. Red loves.
We don't need to do this.
No,
we did a whole
exactly. The whole point is that they're basically taking all of these really cool themes, very obvious, succinct themes, but they're finding, how can we make them complicated? How can we make them dynamic? How can we make them how can we give them depth? So it's not just you play your 4/4. It's like, no, it's a 3/3 that if you have a creature that's got 4 or more power, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So then that creature's +4, a 4 power creature. So then trigger your other creature. Everything works together. Like, the thing I like about this set, there was a lot to pick apart. And everything, as I say, the more complicated your individual cards are, the more malleable your set is, the more you can manipulate it to do different things. And this, as Core Sets go, looks very, very dynamic. It looks like it's got a lot of variation in its gameplay, which is very cool. That's basically what I had for highlights. The only other thing I think I wanted to talk about was just how, as you said earlier, in terms of reprints, oh my god, like they've reprinted. I think it was a day when we got Azusa, we got Grim Tutor. We had like 6 or 7 really, really cool cards come out, and I was like, well, what else are they going to possibly print? They can't print anything. And then Heroic Interventions dropped.
Yeah.
Like they're really clearly not shying away from, like, Fabled Passage is a big one as well. Fabled Passage, they're putting in a core set. Like, this is okay. It's the worst of the fetch lands, but the fact that they're willing to keep putting this and having this in a standard set and keep it reprinted is really encouraging, because it will keep the price down, it keeps the availability up, and it's a really good card for fixing for decks for standard as well.
So I think my idea about this, we were talking yesterday about this, just sort of casually as we were chatting every day as we do, and they can't acknowledge the secondary market for legal reasons. They can't do it. They can't say, we know Khan is a 40 quid card, and, like, you know, fucking Vampire's Gift is like 40p card. They can't do that, because then that would mean that they know the value of their packs, which is a whole gambling thing, and it's yada yada yada. It's why this whole issue exists. But what they can do is they can say, well, we know people really want to play with Heroic Intervention, because for some reason they can't get a hold of it, and everyone keeps saying they want reprints and whatever else have you. So they can listen to that feedback. If they like, that's just good business. If someone tells a company, we really like this thing and we are willing to buy more of your product if this thing is more available, they don't necessarily then have to acknowledge the price of that thing or the reason why it's not available, the reason why they like playing it, right? So yeah, a lot of these cards, this is a very strong reprint set, as is Jumpstart as well. So, and as I say, these were kind of made at the same time. And as you say, it's really interesting that you have a card like Ugin or Heroic Intervention. Heroic Intervention isn't that old school, but Kaladesh is a few years now, where these are older cards, where they have only had one printing. And then you have Fabled Passage, which is Eldraine. It's been, it's been like a set? Set and a half? And yet it's been reprinted like 2 or 3 times, you know? So it's really good.
Yeah, it's seeing things like Solemn in a core set as opposed to having to have it in all your Commander sets. You don't have to buy a Commander product to get your Solemn. Things like Massacre Worm hasn't been reprinted at all, and they reprint it in a core set. And what I like is that if they're going to, the reason this is all possible is because if they bring if the general power level of your regular standard set is like, you know, a Courier level where it's going to be, holy crap, this is pretty punchy, you need your core sets to keep up. And the only way to keep, and if you do allow your core sets to keep up in power level in terms of, you know, potency, then you can have space for these reprints of really strong cards that don't stand out. Like, the thing about things like Crucible of Worlds and Scapeshift is, yeah, they're really strong cards that needed reprints for like modern purposes and stuff like that. But in standard, they're not necessarily going to do broken things because you don't have as much inherent dredge synergy or things like that. Like, you know, standard's usually a bit fairer. Clearly, what we can see now is that if standard's at a point of where you can casually add Azusa and Ugin to, I say casually as if it's not going to completely rumble everything up, but it shows that they're willing to push, the envelope on not only the complication level of core sets, but also the power level of core sets. And yeah, it's really encouraging to see that they are willing to funnel good cards back into core sets, and it doesn't feel like it's a wasted slot. It doesn't feel like it's a wasted set. It doesn't feel like something you can afford to ignore. It's things like Grim Tutor. Like, Grim Tutor's not the best tutor by a long way, but it's now a nice accessible tutor for, again, new players to have. If you're trying to get into Commander and all you've got is, you know, Theros in, say, this core set, then you might not have the most powerful cards. But if you can just open a couple of packs and you've got an Azusa and a Grim Tutor, like, suddenly the potency of your decks and the power level of your collection is a lot bigger, and you're only investing in a core set. You know, you don't have to invest in a signature spell book or something like that. So yeah, really, really cool.
One last thing, because we're running out of time now. One last thing I just wanted to touch on a couple of minutes is shrines.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah.
Like, so I think
I missed the only thing I
think this will be the last thing that we talk about today. But they brought shrines back.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you want to explain? Because this is the first time I've seen shrines printed.
In
terms of new cards. Do you want to explain shrines and what they're about?
So shrines were a cycle of enchantments that had a subtype shrine from Kamigawa. Originally, they were common. They were all called Hondens. So you had like Honden of Burning Flame. Let me just quickly get them up, because I have the shrines, but I don't have the Hondens. But the point is that they were really, really strong. Not only because they were common in Kamigawa, but they all trigger off each other. It's cumulative. The idea basically with shrines is that they have a triggered ability. With these ones in the Core 21 set, they trigger at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. And they'll trigger based on the number of shrines that you have. They'll have a certain effect. So, for example, the white one is a 1-mana legendary enchantment. They are all legendary, so you can't have more than one of them in play at the same time, which is important.
That's really smart.
They do stack. So the white one's a 1-mana legendary enchantment shrine. It has an activated ability 5 and a white tap target creature. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each shrine you control. So automatically it would only cost 5 with itself in play. If you had all 6 of them, because there is 1 for each colour and then 1 multicolored one, essentially it would only cost you 1 white mana to tap a creature, and you could do this at instant speed any number of times. Yeah, the idea is, what I love about these is they're basically like Voltron. It's like you're basically trying to build up, and the reality is that because now these are uncommon, is you're not going to get all of them. If you do get all of them and you get the rare, then you have jackpotted, bingoed. It doesn't really matter. But you're also playing a 5-color deck in limited, so good luck on winning that.
In limited, it's a little bit much, isn't it? But I think what they're trying to do, they always want to have one deck in standard, which is like a theme deck. So you had like the Gates deck in recent standard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, the idea is that they all trigger off of each other. So the blue one, you draw X cards, each number of shrines you control, then discard a card. The black one, each opponent loses X life, you gain X life equal to the number of shrines you control. The red one, pay 1, discard a land or shrine card, which is really cool because if you have duplicates of any of the ones that are in play, you can get rid of them. Still X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X, shockingly, is the number of shrines you control. And then the green one, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of shrines you control. I think the green one's probably the one you want to play first because it helps you then fuel out the other ones. But then the big one is that you've got a 5-color Sanctum of All. This is the 5 mana one. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library or graveyard for a shrine card, put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If an ability of another shrine you control triggers, while you control 6 or more shrines, that ability triggers an additional time. So if you do Voltron and get all 6 of these together, I can't even say everything that's going to happen, but you've won the game. You've done it. You've Yahtzee. And what I love about these is they interact really well with the old shrines from the old Kamigawa. I think they've reprinted them all in, I can't remember which one it was. Iconic Masters? I can't remember.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's one of the master sets, the one that looks like the little time glass. Anyway, so they've reprinted all of the Hondons, and they do the same kind of things. Like the red one deals damage to a creature or player, which is a number of shrines. Blah blah blah. What you can do now though is now you've got the five shrine, the five Hondons from Kamigawa that all have the shrine subtype. You've got the 6 shrines from Core 21. You could start. This is the beginning of a nice. You could do a 5-color theme deck where you do a gate deck, and a shrine deck all in one because they're both 5 colors. That's quite a cool idea. I like that because you're basically getting all of this incremental value off your lands, eventually winning through Maze's End, and otherwise you're getting all of this incremental value off all these enchantments you're playing as well, all within this 5-color hodgepodge meme theme. But yeah, really cool, really good. The one thing we will say is though, Maro has said that this does not give an indication of us going back to Kamigawa. I'm choosing to ignore that.
Well, yeah, we're of course you are.
Because why would you mention it? I mean, I get the whole point you mentioned it because everyone else is going to shout about it, but why would you bring shrines?
Well, I think he's mentioned it because you really want and / think we're going back to Kamigawa. I know for a fact. I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to say I do.
I was like, wait, what the fuck do you know?
I know that the first quarter of next year, because they haven't done the announcements yet, is going to be Phyrexia. Because they've reprinted Massacre Worm. Yeah. We're jumping a little bit ahead. We're going to go to Jumpstart. In Jumpstart, they've reprinted the Swamp. There's one mythic rare Swamp, basic Swamp, that has Phyrexian text on it, and the card art has a Phyrexian Obliterator in the card art.
Good luck getting those.
We've had Elsbeth escape from Theros. Khan's got his little explodey thing, the Silex, which he wants to get done. We're going back to Phyrexia, and it's going to be in this standard.
Yeah, Turn to Slag is literally in this set, and I said that I put this in because there's only 2 equipments in this set. There's a black one and a colourless one. Why would you put that in the set if you weren't deliberately trying to reference Mirrodin, or if we weren't going to equipment-heavy sets going forwards, which Zendikar probably will be, because it still will probably have that adventurous theme. But then the other big equipment set was Mirrodin, and last time we went from Zendikar to New Phyrexia in that order, and this time we might be going from we went from Zendikar into New Phyrexia, and this time again we might be going from Zendikar into New Phyrexia. We'll see. But yeah, I agree. I think if we don't go to Phyrexia next year, then I don't know what we're doing with our lives, because there is no way that we're not. Like, they don't.
How big? How big is the standard thing? So say if like we're now in a new standard environment, how far into next year does that standard environment carry?
It goes 4. I think you have 4 sets, so you'll lose. Oh wait, well no, because I think you lose core set and the autumn set at the same time. So, I mean, I get you've put me on the spot on a question I genuinely don't know the answer.
But is it feasible? Is it feasible that we have this set, Zendikar? And then first quarter next year we have Phyrexia.
Yeah, those would all be in the same. Yeah, I don't know if the 4th set would then count before the core set rotates. I can't remember. I think it's 4 sets of standard, and then it rotates that way. I think again.
Well, I think
quote me. I'm pretty sure that that if it works out that this is if we go M21. Zendikar, Phyrexia, Lorwyn, I'm pretty sure they will all be in the same standard environment for at least a couple of months. Which would be interesting because that's all of the hits from home for me. That's all my I grew up playing one of those sets. So that'd be quite nice to see actually. But yeah,
well, we've done quite a lot of
shit on my Kamigawa idea. Fine, whatever. Just give me shrines.
We're not doing it.
Now, Commander Legends, we'll do. I reckon we'll do like a Tamio themed set at some point before we see her background, and that'll be the way they do Kamigawa cards. And that'll be
too much. It's too stylized, and
I do get it.
Yeah.
I do understand. Yeah, it's not a hill I'm going to die on because I understand the limitations and the hang-ups that Wizards have about it. I just want a touch of it every now and again, you know.
I think as we've discussed ad nauseum now over the past sort of month or so, I think they'll do like ancillary products based on it, or they'll do like a commander set where they might do like this. Like we've only just had commander set, and we're going to have like another 3 this year. But next year's mainline commander set, it's not a stretch to think that they might do the Lorwyn deck, the Ravnica deck.
Well, I hope they don't just tie all the commander products to directly to sets, which I can't remember if they said they were going to be doing that.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? Because I would have liked. One thing we thought of before is where we thought that would be a really good idea if you did planes as a commander product. So each deck.
That's what I mean. I think they could do like a standalone.
Yeah, but
commander set.
I think the idea now is that they do commander sets alongside planes. I mean, I guess because if next year their single product by itself hopefully won't be directly tied and linked in, but we'll see. Because I think the Ikoria one worked, so they might just go, "Oh, that was a good idea. It did work. Let's carry on." we'll see.
Some people didn't like it.
Yeah, no, but some people
as
don't
ever.
like it. Yeah, exactly. Like you can't please everyone, unfortunately. Anyway, so on that lovely note,
on that revelation. Cool. All right, guys. So yeah, that was our M21 kind of more mechanical male episode. Next week we will be doing pure Flavour, and there is a lot. It might be a slightly longer episode because we have to get through characters, we have to get through art styles that they brought in, we've had to get through themes and thematics and all this kind of stuff. So we'll see how we can kind of make it work. Guys, we are hitting a bunch of milestones as a podcast, and that is all down to you guys. We've reached some milestones in terms of the amount of downloads we've had. As kind of sort of small fry as this sounds, we're currently sat on 99 Twitter followers, and so it kind of shows that our social is kind of growing and is kind of being there. If you want to be the 100th person to follow us on Twitter, you can find us at mtflavouring. We are getting some really cool guests on, guys. We've had Vorthos Mike, we had Wayne Reynolds, which has been one of our biggest episodes ever because he is just so cool, and I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you want us to keep getting cool guests on, firstly, one of the best ways to do that is to support us by joining us on social and giving us shout outs and kind of building up our community a little bit. Secondly, is to suggest people. If you have people that you want to see, or maybe if you want to see more artists, or you want to see more people who do like flavor text, or if you want to see more people who are maybe other MTG community personalities that you think may be cool. Cosplayers, love to talk to cosplayers. Like if there's any kind of section of the MTG community that you think, hey, I want to know what these guys think about the flavor of Magic, because I've heard them do a deck tech 1,000 times, but now I want to see what they think about Teferi or whatever else, then let us know. And you know, we're happy to reach out to people and see if they want to come and talk to us, like, because it'll be good for us as well. So yeah, again, at mtflavouring is our Twitter handle. My personal one is at Andy Manface. Nathan's, yours is
at the Fox in the Moon.
Emails go to mtflavouring@gmail.com. I will remind all of our stateside listeners again, flavouring is spelt O-U-R. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know that, but if you're trying to find us on social and you can't, it's O-U-R, because we've got the annoyingly overcomplicated British spellings of things. Yes. Yeah, we add in letters when they don't belong there.
But no, the letter was already there before they took it out. Don't do that, Andy. Don't cave to.
I'm not belittling our language, but COLOR is the word color, and like that's fine. Like I see a lot of things. I think it's okay. There you go. The entirety of a continent. You have my blessing. There you are.
Fantastic.
This is why people accuse us of being tough. So there we are. Anyway,
I accept that. It's fine.
Other than that, Nathan, do you have any final thoughts?
No, absolutely not. Go enjoy your days and weeks, folks. Enjoy summer while it's still here.
Yeah, from the comfort and safety of inside your own boat.
Yeah, exactly. Balcony. Sit on your balcony.
And wear your damn masks as well. Other than that, guys, as ever, thank you so much for listening. This has been Magic the Flavouring.
I'll see you soon.